Hi, everybody. We're going to walk through on this how-to clip from the Research Design Studio, how to merge data files in SPSS so that you add variables to an existing data set. And the point with this is let's say you have, in our case, we have 8 sets of data on a captive population that will vary from file to file, by the way. Maybe there are 15 people in one file and 14 in another, 17 in the next. The purpose of merging across these data sets is to make sure that we get all the repeated data for the same subject on one line. And the point of that, of course, is so that I can do analyses. Maybe I want to do a repeated measures analysis of variance, or I want to look at change over time, or I have just 8 different related but separated variables of interest that I want to merge together and be able to do analyses together. It's a very common question we get, so that's why we wanted to spend a little bit of time walking through this and doing a couple of examples. So let me share an example and walk through the process. So what I have right now is a data file that is the first measure that was collected for this group of individuals. And that group of individuals is identified by the ID number that occurs in this column. I'm not going to click on it because when I do, it shows someone's ID number, and we don't want to give out any personal information, of course. And on all the files that I have up, I've shrunk that down so you can't see it, but they are organized by an ID number. And we highly recommend, of course, that you always use an ID number whenever you're trying to merge files together if you can, because it's easier to make sure that there aren't errors or mistakes with capitalizations or spelling that often will happen with data files when people try to use just a name or something like that. So anyway, I got these data in Excel, and in order to merge files in SPSS, you have to first open them in the SPSS application. So I've opened them all in SPSS, and I'm ready to go. So this is, as I said, this is rubric 1, and I've got 8 total rubrics. I'm going to just merge these together so that they match up. Now, as I said, some people may appear more than once. Some people may appear all 8 times. There may be drop-offs and missing data left and right, and that will just be captured. But the important part is that each person should only appear one time in my data set if I do this properly. So what we do to merge and add variables, I want to go to Data in SPSS, go down to Merge Files. And if you want to add cases, that means I've got 2 data sets, and they all completed the same information, not the same person appearing multiple times, but different people who maybe took the measure in fall, and then another group of people took it in spring. You want to merge those together. That would be add cases. In this case, we're adding variables because I want to have the same person and keep adding on new instances. So I'm going to add variables, and then I have a list of the data sets that I have opened for the other rubrics. So I've got 8 different rubrics that are identified here. If I want to merge it from a different SPSS file, I can go here and pull up one of my old ones. But since I knew what I was doing up front, I just had them all ready to go. So I start with rubric 2 so that I'll work my way through and click on continue. Now this is using, by the way, the Mac version of SPSS. It looks pretty similar to the PC version, but you might notice a few slight differences. There are a couple of ways to do this. You can do a one-to-one merge based on key values, and you can identify that key value, and it'll just merge everything in there automatically for you, letting the computer make that choice. I prefer to go to this tab where it says variables and specifically target the variables I want to add in. And the way you do that, first of all, this included variables is currently, if I just said, okay, it'll merge everything based on the information that is here that says, okay, these are all unique variables. These first 3 where it says has a star, that means they're in the original data file. Everything that has a plus is in the new data file and doesn't overlap with previous information. Well, I don't want just these. There's other stuff that I want. So I want to identified just the key variable, the only thing that I want to actually match people on. And in this case, it's the assessee PID. That's the one that I want. So I'm going to keep that one, but get rid of everything else. So I do that. It kicks those variables over to excluded variables. So right now, those variables do not show up. Let me correct that. Originally, they didn't show up here because they were in the key variable. And since I kicked them over to this excluded variables section, now you'll notice that the plus sign ones are here, but the same variable with star is back over here. And what that basically tells you is that the original data file will maintain any variables that were already there that aren't triggered as a key variable. The key variable will also come through, but the reason this one's important is this is the one we're going to use to decide how to match people up. So I've lined all these up and it gives me all these different variables. Now, this is a time when you can do a little bit of data cleaning. I happen to know all the different stuff that's on this data file already, and I've gone through and I've decided all I need to bring with me is, see where these ats are? Those are the only variables I'm actually interested in. So I'm going to get rid of those things that I'm not interested in. So you see I have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. This is internal coding that I did when I went through to make this easier for me. And now I'm just getting all the 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, etc. until I get down to the end where I have my repeating variables. I click on OK, and you'll see my data file just grew. The way that it grew is it added variables along the way. And you'll also notice that I have some missing information, things that didn't come through. That's okay. We'll get into how you manage that later, but the important part is this just tells me, for instance, this individual didn't have data in data set 1, but they did in data set 2. But I know who they are because I have their ID number here, and that might make sense. And then when I do it, as I go further and further along, you're going to see that the number of people I have data on will also continue to grow because I'll keep adding in new students in this case who weren't in one of the previous data files. As I add more and more data files, though, you'll see that fewer and fewer new additions happen to occur with this set because they will have already appeared in at least one of the prior ones at some point. So I'm going to do that again. Now, this is me being extra careful, but I'm going to save this particular file as it stands. I'm going to call this combined rubrics. So that I don't get it confused with the original just one rubric. So I'm going to do the exact same thing again because I want to add in a third set of variables. Now I'm just going to go back to, data, merge file, add variables. I get this, which one do you want to do? Now I'm on to 3, click OK. I'm going to use the variables method here. I'm going to get rid of the variables that I don't want to be matched variables. Assessee PID, that's my user ID number basically. That's what I want. That's the one I'm going to get. Now, I noticed last time when I was doing this that the this variable binder sent term is missing for all those people. And I'm just deciding, you know, I kind of actually want to keep that information collecting, but it won't work quite right because it is a repeating variable. So what I actually want to do with that one, I'm going to rename this one. I'm going to call it term and just throw it in there like that. Now I'm going to kick it over here and I'll just show you what that does when we merge. Click OK. It adds in my new variables. Oh, and I got an error. There was a duplicate key in the variable and it tells me which one it was. I don't want to mess with that one. So I'm actually going to try this over and redo it because that was an error that should not happen. What that usually means is that someone was graded twice or did the survey twice or whatever it might be. So I'm going to close this actually because I don't want to save the changes that just happened. That's why you save the file as you're going in case you need to make a sudden fix. oops, I don't want to do that. Wrong button. File, I'm going to open recently used data. I'm going to get combined rubrics back up again, and I'm back to where I was before I made that mistake. So now I'm going to do one quick thing. I'm going to analyze. I'm going to sort my cases here just to make sure they're still in the right SE. Sometimes when you merge things, things get a little bit goofy. You just want to check it. I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to merge my files again, add my variables. I'm on 3, going to variables. I'm going to rename this term because I want that to show up. I don't want that one. The term variable I want to have show up over here. But then remember, I have all these other things. I want to get rid of some of these variables because they're quite frankly junk variables for the purpose I have this data file for. So I'm going to get rid of anything that's not necessary. And let's see if I get that error again. I probably will, but I may not since I'm cleaning this up a little bit. You'll see now that, remember I renamed that variable to be term and it's down here now. That's a new variable that will get added in as well. Once again, I did get that error. There's a duplicate file member, and I'll clean that up in my next step. And what that'll be is there's probably, like I said, there's probably someone has been entered twice. So it told me who it is. I can find that person just by searching it, and then I can clean up, either remove it or fix the data file, go back to the original data set and see what the error was and make sure I don't have that mistake. I'm not going to do that right now because it would involve looking at the person's ID number. But you can see as I'm going here, I'm just adding more variables. And as you see here, I also added subjects. So I added another 20 people or so in this round, and it's building. That variable term that I added shows up right here now. You'll see that if it shows up, that was because it was in the new file. If it's empty, it wasn't in the old file. So these are folks who are just new. They didn't have data before, but they do now, and they're filling out. So I can keep doing that. And if I determine that term variable is important for me, I can keep capturing it. In reality, that variable is not of interest to me at all. Neither is the original one I had in there. So I'll get rid of both of those. I'm going to save my file again, and then I'll go back and I'll do it all over again. Merge files, add variables, etc. So that's the process. If you have any questions, of course, just reach out to us here at the Research Design Studio. You should see my link down below, or connect with us through my email. Have a great day.